Have you ever felt like something inside you is awakening, but the world around you tries to make you ignore it? Maybe this is the sign you were waiting for. Before we continue, click like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to ensure this message reaches more people. Now write in the comments, "I accept my call." This phrase is not just a comment, it is a commitment to your journey of transformation. Stay until the end, because this message could be exactly what you need to take the next step. Nothing happens by chance. If you are hearing this message now, it is not a coincidence. Something bigger guided your steps here, and deep down, you know it. Throughout your life, there have been signs that seemed like mere details, little moments of intuition that showed you that there was something different about you. But routine, external voices and distractions in the world tried to silence this call. But he never disappeared, he just stayed there, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And that moment is now. God put something inside you that wasn't given to just anyone. There is a mission, a purpose, a truth that you need to understand. But to do this, you need to be willing to listen, see, and accept that there is something much bigger happening. Perhaps you have felt this calling as a restlessness, as a sense that your life has a special meaning, but you have never been able to fully understand what that means. This is the first revelation. You have been chosen, set apart, empowered for something most people will never understand. Now the question is, are you ready to accept this? Are you willing to leave behind doubt, fear, and insecurity to finally walk in the purpose for which you were designed? The path of the chosen is not easy, but it is the only one that leads to the truth. God brought you here because He knows you are prepared to take this step. Everything that has happened in your life so far has been training, preparation for this moment. Do not ignore this call. How many times have you felt like something was about to happen? That there was an invisible force guiding your steps, putting the right or wrong people in your path, allowing you to go through challenges that seemed impossible, but that somehow transformed you. These were not random events. These were signs, marks left in time so that, at the right moment, you could look back and realize that you were never alone. The chosen ones are those who see beyond the obvious, who feel the truth before even hearing it. But the world around you tried to convince you that these perceptions were just imagination, that your intuition was irrelevant. They made you believe that thinking differently was a mistake, when in fact that was exactly what made you special. But now it all makes sense. Those moments of doubt, the situations that seemed inexplicable, the connections that seemed so deep but ended up falling apart, everything was leading you to this exact moment. You can try to ignore the signs, pretend you don't notice what's happening, but the truth cannot be erased. You feel it inside you. And now, the question is no longer whether the signs exist, but rather what you will do with that knowledge. Will you continue living as if nothing is happening, or will you finally accept that there is something much greater being revealed to you? Ever since you were little, you felt like you saw the world in a different way. While everyone seemed satisfied with the surface of things, you always saw beyond. You sensed hidden intentions, felt energies that couldn't be explained, knew things before they even happened. And that wasn't always easy. Instead of admiring you for this sensitivity, many tried to silence you. They made you feel strange, out of place, like there was something wrong with being the way you are. The truth is that carrying a gift like this is a burden. Not everyone is ready for the truth. Some people prefer to live in illusion because facing reality requires strength, requires courage. And when you refuse to ignore what's in front of your eyes, you end up becoming a threat to those who live off appearances. That's why, in so many moments, you felt alone, misunderstood, surrounded by people who couldn't understand the depth of what you felt. But there is a reason you received this gift. God never gives something without purpose. And if He gave you this vision, this sensitivity, this capacity for discernment, it is because you have an important role to play. Don't allow the world to convince you that your sensitivity is a problem. On the contrary, it is your greatest strength. What once seemed like a burden will now be the key to your transformation. From an early age, the system around you tried to shape you, fit you into patterns, teach you what to think, what to believe, and how to act. But something inside you always resisted. You never accepted ready-made truths. You never settled for empty answers. Your questioning spirit always sought something beyond, always felt that there was more than what they told you. And that bothered a lot of people. The world does not want you to awaken, because a chosen one aware of his true power cannot be controlled. They want you to get lost in distractions, to accept mediocrity, to go with the flow without question. But you weren't made for this. And that's why so many times you felt out of place, like you don't belong anywhere. The truth is, you should never fit in. You were born to transcend. Now you have two choices. You can continue accepting the limitations imposed by the world, living a life that does not reflect your true essence. Or you can finally accept who you are. You can decide that you will no longer be manipulated, that you will no longer follow the script they tried to write for you. The choice is yours. But remember, once the truth is seen, it can never be forgotten. There's a reason you feel things so intensely. There's a reason you pick up on what others ignore, why you notice details that no one notices. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a gift, a direct connection to something much greater than this world can understand. But for a long time, they tried to convince you otherwise. They made you feel exaggerated, fragile, as if being sensitive was a problem to be fixed. But think about it. If your sensitivity were really a problem, why would God have given you this gift? Why would He allow you to see and feel beyond the normal? The answer is simple. Because you have a role to play. Your sensitivity is proof that you are connected to the spiritual, that your soul is not asleep like most. You feel because you were made to feel. You realize why you were made to guide. What will you do with this gift now that you understand its true meaning? Are you going to keep trying to ignore Him, fit in, and pretend you don't notice things? Or will you finally accept it and use it for the purpose God designed for you? The decision is in your hands. Having a spiritual gift is one of the greatest gifts God can give someone, but it can also be a difficult weight to bear. Since you were little, you felt that you were different, that your perception of the world was deeper than that of others. You saw hidden intentions, felt people's energies, noticed invisible connections that most ignored. But instead of this being seen as a gift, it was often treated as a problem. You heard that you were too sensitive, too intense, that you needed to fit the mold, as if this spiritual connection was a mistake, not a blessing. But here's the truth. God doesn't give gifts without purpose. If He gave you this sensitivity, this intuition, this ability to see beyond the obvious, it was because you have an important role to play. This gift was never a curse, but the world made it seem like it was. Because those who have sight are dangerous to a system that depends on blindness. They do not want you to understand your true strength, because an awakened chosen one cannot be manipulated, cannot be used, cannot be limited. Now it's up to you to decide how you will use this gift. You can keep carrying it like a burden, trying to ignore it, trying to fit into a world that wasn't made for those who see the truth. Or you can finally accept your purpose, understand that this gift is a privilege, and use it as God intended. You were not made to live like others. You have been called to something greater. In a world where people are content with superficiality, having discernment is like carrying a lighthouse through the darkness. You always noticed what others didn't see. While many believe in words and masks, you feel the truth hidden behind the gestures, the silences, the small details that escape the common eye. This was never a coincidence. It was God giving you a powerful tool to navigate this world full of illusions. But discernment also has a price. He made you see the reality of the people around you, and often that truth was painful. You noticed when someone pretended to care, when a smile was fake, when the intentions behind the words were very different from what they said. You tried to warn, you tried to share this vision, but few listened to you, and in the end, frustration set in. After all, what's the point of seeing the truth if no one wants to see it? The answer is simple. Discernment was not given to you to convince others, but to protect and guide your own path. God gave you this clarity so that you knew who to trust, so that you could avoid pitfalls and follow the right path. You don't need anyone's approval to validate how you feel. Just trust what you already know. You never quite fit in. While the people around you followed patterns without question, you always had a restlessness inside you. The banal conversations seemed empty. The rules imposed by society never made sense to you. You felt like there was something beyond, something bigger, something that no one seemed to notice. And because of that, you often felt out of place, alone, as if you were in a world that wasn't made for you. This feeling of difference was not a mistake. It was a calling. God has placed in you something unique, a vision that few have, a connection that separates you from the ordinary. But the world tried to convince you that this was a problem. They wanted you to fit in, to ignore that restlessness and go with the flow like everyone else. But deep down, you knew that would never be possible, because inside you something always whispered that your mission was greater. Now you understand. You were not born to be like others. Your difference is not a defect, but a mark of the chosen ones. You have a role to play, and no matter how much the world tries to divert you from that path, your spirit will always find the truth. Because you weren't made for mediocrity, you were made to transcend. Being a chosen one is not only an honor, it is also a lonely path. Have you ever noticed that as you advance spiritually, fewer people remain by your side? This happens because not everyone is ready for the truth. Not everyone can withstand the intensity of those who seek something greater. Have you ever tried to share your vision, explain what you feel, but realize that few people understand? And that hurts. It hurts to realize that those you loved can't move on with you. But this loneliness is not a punishment, but rather a filtering. God keeps away those who are not prepared for the journey, those who would try to stop you from growing, those who would contaminate your path with doubts and limitations. It separates you not because it wants to isolate you, but because it is preparing a new environment, new connections, new people who will be aligned with your purpose. If you feel like you're walking alone, don't despair. This means you are heading in the right direction. The loneliness of the chosen is not eternal. It is just the necessary interval before finding those who walk in the same purpose as you. One of the most difficult lessons for those who awaken spiritually is to realize that not everyone is ready to hear the truth. At first, you felt the desire to share your discoveries, to open the eyes of those around you, to show that there is something much bigger happening. But to his surprise, his words were met with disbelief, resistance, and in many cases even mockery. The truth is that most people don't want to see beyond what they already know. They prefer the security of illusion to the discomfort of truth. And no matter how much you try to explain, some minds just aren't ready to understand. God didn't reveal these things to you so you could try to convince the world. He revealed them to you so you could become a living example of transformation. From now on, choose wisely for those who share your vision. Some people are not prepared for the light you carry, and that's okay. Your role is not to force anyone to see, but rather to walk in truth and allow those who are ready to find the path for themselves. One of the most difficult lessons for those who awaken spiritually is to understand that not everyone around them is prepared for the truth. In the beginning, when you started to see beyond the obvious, you felt an urgent need to share your discoveries, to open the eyes of those you love. You believed that if people knew what you know, everything would change. But to their surprise, many of them reacted with disbelief, contempt, or even aggression. You saw people close to you mock, discredit, reject something that was so clear to you. This happens because the truth can be a heavy burden for those who live in illusion. The human mind tends to cling to the comfort of what it already knows, because facing reality requires courage and effort. Many prefer to ignore it, pretend they didn't see it, deny the change in order to continue living without much questioning. And in this process, they end up attacking those who dare to see beyond. This is why trusting the wrong person can be a fatal mistake. Sharing your vision with those who are not ready can not only hurt you, but also weaken your own belief. The enemy knows that when a chosen one feels isolated and disbelieved, they may begin to doubt what they already know to be real. So the big question is not just who you can trust, but who is ready to listen to what you have to say. Some truths cannot be wasted on those who do not know their value. Keeping what is sacred and only sharing it with those who demonstrate maturity and understanding is an act of wisdom. It's not about hiding your light, but about protecting it until the right time and the right people come along. The more you grow spiritually, the more you realize that not everyone can follow this growth. People who once seemed aligned with you begin to seem distant. Topics that were once interesting become superficial. Connections that once seemed solid begin to weaken. And then loneliness becomes inevitable. You ask yourself, why the more I evolve, the more I feel distant from people? The answer lies in the frequency at which you vibrate. Just as a radio station can only be received by those tuned to the same frequency, its energy can only be understood by those who are on a similar level. It doesn't mean that others are inferior, just that everyone is at a different stage of the journey. And when you accelerate your awakening process, you inevitably distance yourself from those who are not yet ready. So what to do? Accept. Accept that this separation is not a punishment, but a filtering. Accept that some people needed to leave your life so that others, more aligned, could enter. Accept that being alone for a while doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're being prepared. God never takes something away without the intention of replacing it with something better. The secret is to trust the process, keep evolving, and allow life to bring those who truly belong on your path. Nothing you went through was in vain. Every challenge, every loss, every obstacle was training. Many times you asked yourself, why is this happening to me? Without realizing that God was preparing you for something much bigger. Just as a soldier does not go to war without first being trained, you cannot fulfill your mission without first being shaped. The chosen ones do not have an easy life, because carrying a purpose requires resistance. You have gone through moments of pain to develop strength. You faced betrayals to learn to discern who is really on your side. You faced periods of loneliness to learn to connect with yourself. Each of these experiences was not a punishment, but a teaching. While many see difficulties as barriers, those chosen understand that they are steps to a higher level. Now look back. Realize how each phase of your life brought you here. You are no longer the same person as before. You grew, evolved, became more aware, more prepared. And all of this because God knew exactly what He needed to do to get you ready for the next level. Now, the question is, are you ready to embrace the purpose He has for you? This is the moment of decision. You can keep ignoring the signs, pretending nothing is happening, trying to fit into a world that was never meant for you. Or you can finally accept your calling and take your place among the chosen. There is no turning back, because once the truth is seen, it can never be forgotten. The chosen ones are not those who live to please others. They are not those who go with the flow, who conform, who fear standing out. They are those who carry a light of their own, an unshakable truth, a purpose that goes beyond common understanding. But this choice has a price. You will have to let go of old patterns, leave behind people who are not aligned, face challenges that will test your faith. But in the end, the reward will be far greater than anything the world can offer. So I ask you, are you ready to take this step? Are you willing to carry out this purpose with courage, knowing that it will not be easy, but that it will be worth it, because the time for waiting is over. The call was made, and now it's up to you to respond. Now that you've heard all this, there's no more pretending you don't know. Something inside you has awakened, something has been activated. And now, the only question left is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Many receive the truth, but few have the courage to act on it. Many feel the call, but few respond. Many know what they should do, but keep putting off the decision. But you can't put it off any longer. Time is passing, opportunities are moving, and God is waiting for your answer. He has already shown you the signs. He has already prepared you. He has already strengthened you. Now, the choice is yours. You can continue living as before, ignoring your mission, hiding from what you already know to be real. Or you can decide that today will be the day everything changes. Destiny doesn't wait. Purpose cannot be ignored forever. The question that remains is, will you act now or keep waiting? The time for doubt is over. Now it's time to walk.